This happened in the summer of 2022, right after I turned 19. I had just wrapped up my first year of community college and was babysitting part-time to make some money. That's how I ended up watching 3 Kids for a Family in Willow Creek, this quiet little suburb just outside of town. You know the kind, old trees, friendly neighbors, and houses that all sort of look the same. Peaceful on the outside, but not everything in Willow Creek was as quiet as it seemed. The kids I watched were brothers, Max 3, Liam 5, and Noah 7. I knew their mom, Rachel, through a mutual friend. She was a nurse who worked the overnight shift at the local hospital, and she needed someone to watch the boys from 6 p.m. until around midnight. Since I wasn't working mornings, it worked out fine. Rachel was super nice, always left snacks and money for pizza, and treated me with respect. She was a single mom, raising 3 boys on her own after leaving a bad relationship with her ex. Something she didn't talk much about. The boys were full of energy, but mostly sweet. Max was a sleepy little toddler who conked out by 8 p.m. every night without much fuss. Noah, the oldest, loved video games and was pretty independent. Liam, the middle one, though. Liam was different. He had a vivid imagination, mood swings, and a way of getting under your skin without even trying. One night he'd be totally fine. The next he'd be crying about the shadows moving wrong in his room or swearing that someone had knocked on his window when no one was there. At first I chalked it up to kid stuff. Imagination, right? Anyway, this one night, it was a Thursday, I showed up like usual. The house was calm. Rachel left a note saying the boys had already eaten, and Max was half asleep on the couch. We played a few games on the Switch, and around 8 I took Max to bed. He shared a hallway with Liam and Noah, each with their own small bedroom. I tucked him in, read a short story, and turned on his nightlight, the usual routine. By 9 it was time to get Liam ready for bed. That's when things started to feel off. Liam was staring at his closet, just standing there in the middle of his room, arms hanging by his sides, eyes fixed on the closed door. I asked what he was doing, and he said, dead serious, he's back. I laughed a little, trying to make light of it. Who's back? The man in the closet, he said. He talks really quiet like this. And Liam whispered something too low for me to hear. That gave me chills. I told him there was no man in his closet and opened it to prove it. Just clothes, a few toys, and an old laundry basket. Nothing scary, but Liam didn't believe me. He only hides when big people come, he said. Okay. Creepy, but again, imagination, right? I left the closet open and told him I'd leave the hallway light on just in case. He seemed satisfied with that, so I tucked him in and headed back downstairs. Noah was still playing Mario Kart and begged me to play one race with him before he went to bed. I agreed. I figured by the time we finished, Liam would be asleep. But about 5 minutes later, I heard soft crying from upstairs. I ran up and found Liam curled up under his blanket, shaking. He's walking around in the closet, he whispered. He's mad because you opened the door. I looked at the closet again. Still open. Still nothing in it, but then, no joke, I heard something. A tiny scratchy sound like someone dragging their fingernails against wood. It came from the back wall of the closet. I froze. Liam whispered, do you hear it now? I did, I absolutely did. I didn't say anything. Just scooped him up and said, okay, buddy, you're gonna sleep in Noah's room tonight. I didn't want to freak him out, but I didn't want to leave him alone in that room either. I walked him to Noah's room, made a big pillow bed on the floor, and got both of them settled. I told them I'd be downstairs if they needed anything. 10 minutes later, I was sitting on the couch trying to calm my nerves with a sitcom on low volume when the noise started again. Not crying this time, louder. Bangs. Like someone hitting the inside of the closet door. I bolted upstairs, heart pounding. The hallway was dark except for the nightlight glowing from Max's room. I peeked into Liam's room and the closet door was now shut. I hadn't closed it, I'm not an idiot. I know I left it open. I felt something cold run through my whole body. I backed away and went straight to Noah's room. Both kids were awake, staring at the door. "He's out," Liam whispered. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and called Rachel. I tried to stay calm on the phone, but I think my voice was shaking. I asked if there was any chance they had a raccoon or something in the walls. She got quiet, then asked, "Was the closet open or closed?" "Closed," I said. "But it was open when I left it." She got even quieter. "It might be Jason," she said. "My ex." "What?" "I think he's been coming around again." I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said she'd recently blocked his number and that he'd broken into the house before. Once she found muddy footprints in the hallway that weren't there when she went to bed. She told me to get the kids out and to not open the closet again. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed the boys, put Max in my arms, and the other two followed. As we were heading for the stairs, we heard it, the creak of the floorboards behind us. I turned around, and I swear to you, for a split second, I saw someone's shadow moving just inside Liam's room, just behind the door. A tall shape, too tall to be one of the kids. We ran. As I unlocked the front door, we heard a loud bang upstairs. I didn't stop to look. I threw the kids in my car and called 911. We drove down the street and waited at a neighbor's house. The police showed up about 10 minutes later. Rachel got home not long after that. She was crying. The cops searched the house. No sign of forced entry, no fingerprints. Nothing stolen, but Liam's closet? It was wide open. The old laundry basket had been moved. And there was something else, scratches. Long, deep scratches along the inside of the closet door, as if someone had been clawing to get out. Rachel told me that her ex, Jason, had mental health issues and a history of stalking. They were never able to press charges because there was never enough evidence. That night, she decided to stay somewhere else for a while. The boys stayed with her parents. I never went back to that house. We eventually lost touch, and I still don't know what happened to them. But I think about it all the time. Not just the sound, not just the shadow, but that whisper Liam told me about. He only hides when big people come. Because whatever was in that closet, I don't think it was just Jason. So this happened back in the summer of 2016. I was 13, just out of 7th grade, and staying with my aunt and uncle for a few weeks in this small town called Maple Hollow. It's one of those places where nothing really ever happens, you know? Just woods, farms, and people who leave their doors unlocked without thinking twice. Anyway, I was bored out of my mind. I didn't know any kids there, and my phone barely got a signal. So one afternoon, my Aunt Sarah said, "Hey, you want to make a little money while you're here? My friend Rebecca down the street needs someone to watch her boys for a few nights." Now, I'd never babysat before, but I figured, why not? I could use some cash, and how hard could it be? The kids, Owen and Max, were 7 and 4. Rebecca and her husband were going out of town for a few late dinners, so I'd just need to watch the boys from 6 to 11 p.m. for a couple nights. Easy. That evening, my aunt walked me over to meet the family. Rebecca was super friendly, and the boys were kind of shy at first, but they warmed up fast. Owen loved dinosaurs, and Max was obsessed with race cars. Their house was old, like creaky floorboards and flickering lights old, but cozy enough. Nothing weird yet. Just as we were leaving that first night, Rebecca handed me a little sheet of paper with the boys' bedtime routine, snack options, emergency numbers, all that usual stuff. But then at the bottom, in tiny writing, she added this: "If Max says he hears tapping at the window, just ignore it. He's been saying that for weeks. We think he picked it up from some scary cartoon or something. It's not real." I kind of laughed when I read it. I mean, tapping at the window? Classic little kid spooky story, right? The next night came fast. My aunt dropped me off around 5:45. It had rained earlier, and the whole neighborhood smelled like wet leaves and earthworms. The sky was cloudy and gray, and there was this heavy, sticky feeling in the air, like the kind of stillness before a thunderstorm. The boys were already in their pajamas. We played board games for a while, then watched a movie. Everything was going great. No tantrums, no drama. At around 8:30, I gave them each a snack, apple slices and juice, then got them tucked in by 9 Max didn't complain, but he did seem kind of off, quiet. He kept glancing at his window like he was waiting for something. I asked if he was okay, and he whispered, "Don't let him in." I laughed nervously and said, "Who?" He didn't answer. He just rolled over and pulled the blanket up to his ears. That kind of stuck with me, but again, he was 4. Kids say weird things. I figured he was just being silly, maybe testing me. So I went back downstairs and started scrolling through my phone. Not even 30 minutes later, I heard it. Tap, 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 clear as day. 3 slow spaced out taps, coming from upstairs. I froze. At first, I thought maybe Max had gotten out of bed and was messing with something. But it didn't sound like little fingers on glass. It was sharper, more deliberate. I tiptoed up the stairs, trying not to make the old steps creak. When I reached Max's room, the door was half open. I peeked in. He was still in bed, wide-eyed, staring at the window. I flipped on the light and went over to the window myself. Outside was nothing but the backyard and woods beyond the fence. Just trees swaying a little in the breeze. Not a soul in sight, see? I said, trying to sound confident. Nothing there. Max didn't say anything. He just pointed to the window and whispered, "He's gone now. But he'll come back." That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was a faint smudge on the glass, like an oily handprint. Right at kid height, except Max couldn't reach that high. Not unless he climbed something. And I would have heard that. I didn't want to freak him out, so I just said something like, "Well, if he comes back, he better be ready to get yelled at." I even tried to laugh a little, but inside I felt like ice. I checked Owen's room too. He was sound asleep. Nothing weird there. I decided to stay upstairs and sit in the hallway outside their rooms just in case. It was quiet for a while. Too quiet. Then tap, tap, tap. This time it wasn't Max's room, it was Owen's. I jumped up and ran to his door. He hadn't woken up, but the tapping was still happening. I opened the curtain slowly, heart pounding. Nothing, just blackness, and then movement. I swear to you, I saw something shift in the shadows near the edge of the woods. Not a raccoon, not a branch. Something tall. Something standing upright. I closed the curtain fast and locked the window. Not that a flimsy little latch would have done much. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call the police and get in trouble if it turned out to be nothing. But I couldn't just sit there anymore. I texted my aunt. "Something's outside the house. Can you come over?" She didn't reply right away. Meanwhile, I walked back into Max's room. He was sitting up now, holding his race car like it was a teddy bear. "He wants to see who's inside," Max whispered. "He always watches first. Then he knocks louder." I asked him what he meant, and he said he has no eyes, but he sees anyway. That was it. I grabbed the cordless phone from the kitchen and called the police. The operator was calm but serious. She said an officer would drive by to check it out. I thanked her, hung up, and went back upstairs to wait. The clock ticked slowly. 10 minutes, 15. Nothing. Then the tapping came back, but louder this time. Tap, 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 and not just from one window, from both boys' rooms. At the same time, I felt like I was in a nightmare. Like no matter how fast I moved or how loud I shouted, I couldn't stop it. I yelled, "Hey, this is private property. I've already called the cops." Right after I said that, I heard it, this heavy shuffling sound, like footsteps dragging across the grass, quick and clumsy. I ran to the window and flicked on the backyard floodlight. Just for a split second, I saw it. A figure. Tall, pale, skinny arms. No face, just smooth, blank skin where the eyes and mouth should have been. Like a mannequin that had melted and then gone, vanished into the trees. I ran back into Max's room and stayed there with him until the cops came. He curled up next to me and whispered, "He doesn't like the light." When the officer finally showed up, I told him everything. He looked around the yard and even used a flashlight to check the woods, but found nothing. Not a footprint. Not a broken branch. Nothing. I could tell he didn't believe me, but he also didn't act surprised. He just said, "You're not the first one to call in something like this. We've had reports the last couple months. Kids saying someone's looking in their windows, tapping on the glass, always late at night. But we've never caught anyone." That chilled me more than anything else. I told Rebecca and her husband what happened. At first, they just laughed it off. But when I mentioned the handprint on Max's window, Rebecca went quiet. Said she'd check the security camera in the backyard. Later that week, she called my aunt. She said the camera was dead, hadn't recorded anything all night, like the battery had been drained. I never babysat for them again. I couldn't. To this day, I still think about that figure in the woods, about the tapping, about the way Max said, "He sees anyway." So next time a little kid tells you something creepy, maybe don't shrug it off. Sometimes they're the only ones paying attention. I was 9 years old when this happened, and my cousin Mia was 7. We were spending the weekend at my aunt's house in a quiet little neighborhood just outside of Maple Grove, Minnesota. It was one of those suburbs where every house looks like it was copy-pasted from the next, and at night the whole block goes completely still. Almost too still. Our aunt and uncle were going on a weekend trip to Wisconsin Dells, some couple's retreat thing, and since they didn't want to cancel last minute, they found someone to watch us. Not a friend, not a relative, just some teenage guy who answered a local Facebook babysitting post. His name was Landon. He was 16, lanky, had shaggy brown hair that kept falling over his eyes, and wore this oversized hoodie like it was glued to his body, the kind of kid who always looked like he just woke up. I remember my aunt telling us, "Landon's gonna watch you two while we're gone. He's a good kid, goes to Westridge High just like your cousin does." She smiled like that was enough to calm any nerves. It wasn't. From the start, something about Landon felt off, not bad guy off, just weird. He didn't talk much. When he did, he spoke super soft like he was always trying not to wake someone up, and he never smiled with his teeth. Always just that tight-lipped twitch. The first night was uneventful mostly. I played Minecraft on the Switch downstairs while Mia drew cats and castles in her sketchbook on the living room floor. Landon stayed on the couch scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing at us. He didn't really say anything, but he also didn't leave the room. Just sat there watching. Around 10:30, he told us it was bedtime. I remember he said it super politely like, "Hey guys, probably time to head to bed soon, yeah?" Which on paper sounds fine, but it felt weird. Too polite. Like he was rehearsing the line. We brushed our teeth and went to our separate rooms. I had the guest room at the end of the hall, and Mia was in her usual bedroom across from it. Landon went downstairs after tucking us in, which again sounds nice, but neither of us asked to be tucked in. That night I woke up randomly. The house was completely dark and dead quiet. No humming from the fridge, no wind outside, no cars, nothing. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps on the carpet. At first I thought it was just my imagination or maybe the house settling. But then I heard my door creak, not open, just creak. I froze. I was laying on my side facing the wall, and I remember telling myself not to turn around. Don't look. Just pretend to be asleep. But curiosity got the better of me. I peeked over my shoulder and saw the door slowly close shut. Not slam. Not click, just gently shut like someone didn't want to wake me. I thought maybe it was Mia. Maybe she got scared and came to my room but changed her mind. That's what I told myself anyway. The next morning, Landon made us eggs and toast. He didn't mention the door. Neither did I. Saturday was when things got weirder. Landon actually tried to be fun. He challenged me to Mario Kart, which was cool, and then offered to go outside to watch us play soccer. Mia and I played while he refereed, except he didn't really ref. He just stood near the back fence watching, like, not watching the ball or the game. Watching us. Later that evening we had pizza. Again, his idea. He paid for it with cash even though our aunt had left him a debit card. When I asked why, he just mumbled something about not wanting to mess with someone else's money. After dinner, I went to my room to play on my tablet, and Mia stayed in hers with her music on. It was a chill night until around midnight. I'd fallen asleep with the tablet still on the bed. I woke up because I felt cold. Not room temperature cold. Cold. Like someone had pulled the blanket halfway off me. When I sat up, I saw Landon. He was standing just inside my room, not moving, not saying anything, just standing there. The light from the hallway behind him made his face look almost hollow. Shadows sunk into his eye sockets, and his hair looked messy, like he'd just been rolling around on the floor. I froze. "What are you doing?" I asked. He whispered, "Just checking." "Checking what?" I said, my voice shaking. He didn't answer. He took a slow step forward, and I instinctively shouted, "Stop!" He paused. Something about that word seemed to work. He backed up, gave this tight, twitchy smile, and left the room. Just walked out like nothing happened. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Instead, I grabbed my pillow and blanket and quietly went into Mia's room. She was asleep, her little nightlight glowing blue beside her bed. I laid on the floor and stared at the ceiling until morning. The next day, Sunday, was tense. Landon avoided eye contact. He stayed mostly in the kitchen or the garage. I kept Mia close to me all day, even though she kept asking why I was being so clingy. I didn't want to scare her. That night, things hit their peak. I told Mia I'd sleep in her room again. She thought it was a fun sleepover. We played Go Fish and told dumb jokes until she dozed off. I stayed awake, though. I was ready this time. Around 1 a.m., I heard the floor creak in the hallway, not once, not twice, but slowly, step by step. Then Mia's door began to open. I saw the knob turn first. Then it cracked open just enough for the hall light to spill in, and there he was. Landon. He didn't say anything, just looked into the room, his hand still on the knob. I don't even think he knew I was awake. Maybe he thought we were both asleep. Then he stepped inside. I sat up and said, "Get out." He flinched like he'd been caught stealing. He started, then trailed off. "Just checking on her." "No, you're not," I said, standing up between him and Mia's bed. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not anger, not guilt, just something, blank, hollow. Then without a word, he turned around and left. I ran to the door, slammed it shut, and locked it. That was the last time I saw Landon. The next morning, Mia and I stayed in her room. I didn't tell her what happened, just said we were going to play in her room until our aunt and uncle got home. When they pulled into the driveway around noon, we heard them talking to Landon outside. Laughing even, acting like everything was totally normal. We didn't leave the room until we heard the front door shut and the sound of their car backing out of the driveway. Later, my aunt asked why we were both in the same room. I made something up, bad dreams or something. I didn't say what really happened, and I still haven't, not to her, not to my uncle, not to anyone in the family, but I think about it a lot. I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed asleep that night, or if I hadn't said anything, or if I wasn't there to stop him when he came into Mia's room. And the scariest part, I never got his last name, never knew where he came from. I don't even know if Landon was his real name, and because I never told anyone, he just walked away, free. Maybe he never did anything again. Or maybe he did.